acquaintance we forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance we forgot and old lang syne? For old lang syne, my dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup of wine.
Good morning. My name is Claire Allwater. Thank you. I'm a tallish white woman, brown hair, wearing a gray sweater with a white blouse. Welcome to First Unitarian Church, where our mission is to explore the eternal, nurture the community, and to pursue the common good. We welcome you in your brokenness and in your wholeness. No matter who you have been, who you are becoming, or who you are, we greet you in love. I'd like to extend a special welcome to everyone who is watching on YouTube this morning during the prelude. Please introduce yourself in the commentary and let us know where you are joining us from. Are you in OKC? And if so, what neighborhood? And if you're not in the city, where are you? What state? And now the prelude prepares us for worship.
We light our chalice in Midtown, Oklahoma City, on land that was home to first Americans, including the Apache, Caddo, and Wichita, on land that was taken from the Muskogee and Seminole, and other removed and relocated peoples. We light the chalice as a symbol of our sacred time together. The burning chalice represents the light of reason and science, the warmth of loving community, the cleansing heat of justice, and the flame of hope.
Again, welcome. Para nuestros amigos hispanohablantes, buenos días. I am Reverend Diana Davies, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a white woman in my 50s wearing a clergy stole that is blue and has butterflies on it. And in case you're wondering about it, here at First Unitarian, we share our pronouns and offer self-descriptions as part of our effort to ensure that no one is excluded from full participation in the life of the congregation. And there are a few other things I want to let you know about in this regard. Our sanctuary and fellowship hall are both equipped with a telecoil hearing loop system. Now, unfortunately, hearing loops or hearing aids are all different, so there's no single set of instructions for how to connect to our system. If you're someone who wears a hearing aid, we encourage you to talk with your doctor or hearing care professional to find out if yours is equipped with a telecoil, and if so, how to turn that on. And for those who are joining us this morning who may have a visual impairment, I just want to remind you that we have large print orders of service and large print hymnals that you can find in the back of the sanctuary. And please always ask an usher if you have questions. Down in front of me, you will see that our memorial candle has been lit this morning, and it has been lit in honor of LaDonna Hunt's brother, Dwayne, who passed away on Thursday afternoon after a long struggle with Alzheimer's. Please join me in a moment of silence as we hold LaDonna and her family in our care. So come now into this sacred time and sacred space, into a space of caring and concern, into a space of welcoming and wondering, into a time of togetherness and tenderness. Come, let us worship together. And our opening hymn is number 56, and today we invite everyone to remain seated and sing along with the choir. Number 56 in the gray hymnal, Bells in the High Tower.
Bells in the high tower, ringing all the white wheels, mocking the winter, singing like the spring reels. Bells in the high tower, in the cold foretelling the springs of bells in the altar, like the summer chatter, from darting bright birds as the grapes unrather. Bells in the altar, now the vine is brimming, new life beginning. Bells in the stone tower, echoing the soft sound from autumn mill wheel
Some things will never happen. I will never win $1 million. I will never be young again. But some things happen that shouldn't happen. I was 19 and a sophomore away at college, and it was the Thursday before Thanksgiving. My house mother crept into the room I shared with my roommate and woke me up to say that my aunt and uncle would be coming in a couple of hours to pick me up, that I was needed at home. And she didn't know why, but I should get ready. So my aunt and uncle arrived, and on the 4.5-hour journey home, the only thing I found out was that my mother wasn't well and my father wanted me at home. When I walked into my house, my father was sitting at the kitchen table, and there were all these people in the house, and I could tell something was serious. And so he took me upstairs to my bedroom and told me that my mother had had a heart attack the day before and died. I was shocked. Afterwards, I found out she was having chest pains, but the doctor said everything was fine. But I had no idea. I was away at school, and you never let a child worry. So, by Thanksgiving, the funeral was over. All the friends and relatives were gone, and the house was empty. That was my first real experience of what happens when what happens shouldn't happen. On the Sunday after Thanksgiving, my dad took me back to college for the 3 weeks before Christmas break. He said that is what my mother would have wanted. I dreaded it. The week wasn't enough, folks. So my roommate from college and my closest friends, they didn't know what to say to me. They didn't know what to do with me. But they were there for me. They didn't give up on me. The 6 of us are still very close. We have an amazing bond. We get together for the past 20 years when our lives straightened out a little bit. We get together every year for a mini vacation at some location that we all manage to get to. And we share laughter and stories of good times and bad times. And it is truly a gift for which I'm grateful. As I tell you this story, I think about all the children who were a lot younger than I was when I lost my mother. And I think of all the parents who have lost children, which I think is even worse. The heartache is greater. I have one more Land of Never story to share with you. This one wasn't as personally wounding, but it hit hard. It was the early 80s, and my family and I were living in Tallahassee, Florida. And we were members at John Wesleyan Methodist Church. On a Sunday afternoon in 1982, a very lovely young woman, very active in the church, went out to lunch with an older couple, as was their wont to do. They sang in the choir together. But this one Sunday, as she was leaving the mall, walking to her car, she was abducted and murdered by a total stranger. It was a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. What happened was horrific. The police report was shattering. The congregation was devastated. Our pastor recommended that we read Rabbi Kushner's new book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. I read it, and it helped, but the shock remained. How could this happen? So how do any of us move forward when what should never happen happens? Tornadoes destroy a town. A flood takes everything away in a city. A drunk driver hits another car. A child is abused. Things happen, and we are left to handle the change. But how? Being in my mid-70s, I have lived long enough to come to this realization. When the land of never hits, we have to see the world through the eyes of love and act in love. There are always people who care. A relative, a friend, a neighbor, a warm, loving church community like we have here. I look back at the people who were there for me when my mother died, when my husband died, or when I was simply overwhelmed. And in every instance, I had people around me who acted with love. They comforted me, they called me, they listened to me, they distracted me, and they cared. That is love at work. And that is our gift to give to others. Life goes on, new patterns evolve, old resentments fade, sadness lessens, and slowly the world looks good again.
Thank you, Claire. It has been a tradition at First Unitarian that from Thanksgiving until the end of December, families are invited to put a small box on their mealtime table into which they place their pocket change or their daily offerings of small bills. At the end of the calendar year, the boxes are returned to the church and we send the collected money off to the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee in support of their work, putting Unitarian Universalist values into practice in the fight for global human rights. But just for this year, we're going to try something a little different. UUSC will be our Change for Change partner for the month of December, and we will collectively make our gift through our weekly offering. Now, of course, if your family would like to continue the tradition of the guest at your table box, watch our Facebook group pages and our weekly newsletters for instructions on how to make your own. And you are welcome to add the collected funds and together and send a check directly to the UU Service Committee. And if you'd like to become a member of the UU Service Committee or renew your membership, just go to the website uusc.org and click on the Ways to Give tab. Our congregation's liaison to the UUSC is Lana Henson. And if you would like to learn more about what the UUSC does or how to support it or how to become a member, I am sure she would be very happy to talk with you about it.
But first, what is the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee? The story goes back to 1939 when Unitarian minister Reverend Waitzel Sharp and his wife Martha set sail from the United States to help refugees escape Nazi persecution. Just weeks after their arrival in Czechoslovakia, the couple watched Hitler's troops march into Prague. They were shadowed by Gestapo agents. Their offices were ransacked and they had to burn files to protect refugees' identities. The young couple narrowly escaped arrest by returning home in August. Inspired by Reverend Waitzel and Martha Sharp's courageous mission, the Unitarian Service Committee, the precursor to UUSC, was established in 1940 to continue and formalize humanitarian service. For more than 80 years, UUSC has maintained a steadfast presence on the front lines of social justice movements around the globe. They do this by partnering with grassroots organizations and movements that share our faith's rights goals. Some current partners include Progressive Voice, a network of organizations throughout the Asia-Pacific region that is mobilizing a movement for democracy and human rights in Burma.
The Alaska Institute for Justice, which works with Alaska Native communities to increase their adaptive capacity as they experience climate change impacts, and to advocate for human rights protections as they face the permanent disappearance of the land on which they live and sustain livelihoods.
Ecological Solutions, which addresses ecological problems in the Solomon Islands through approaches that best maintain and sustain ecosystems.
The Lowlander Center, which works with the Louisiana Bayou community members, most of whom are descended from the Biloxi, Chitimacha, and Choctaw tribes, to develop a resettlement plan for the island, which has lost 98% of its land and most of its population to rising sea levels.
And the Undocu Black Network, which is a multi-generational network of undocumented Black people that fosters kinships, facilitates access to resources, and contributes to transforming the realities of people so they can thrive and live life to its fullest.
I am honored to serve on the Finance Committee of the UUSC, and in that capacity, I can tell you that the Service Committee has consistently earned the highest possible rating from Charity Navigator, which indicates sound fiscal management and a commitment to accountability and transparency. So by supporting the UUSC, we are ensuring that our resources are utilized as effectively as possible in a way that is consistent with our values as Unitarian Universalists.
In years past, our congregation has been recognized as having an exemplary level of congregational members in the UUSC. We hope to continue that tradition, and we hope that you will learn more about the Service Committee in the coming weeks and months and support this organization doing the work of love and justice in a world that desperately needs it. Thank you.
Every Sunday, we take an offering. Since 2002, all the cash and designated checks from that offering have gone directly to external nonprofit organizations doing good work, our Change for Change partners. For the month of December, our Change for Change partner is the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or UUSC. Founded in 1940, the UUSC advances human rights and social justice around the world, partnering with those who confront unjust power structures and mobilizing to challenge oppressive policies. Their work is grounded in the belief that all people have inherent power and dignity. Current strategic priorities include global crisis response, climate justice, and Central American migrant justice. For those of you who are in the sanctuary with us today, in just a moment we will be passing the offering plate. And if you're watching us online, please make your gift by sending a check to First Unitarian, just write Change for Change in the memo line, or make an online payment through our website, 1UC.org.
Jan Richardson is a poet and an artist who has experienced great loss. She had been married to her husband, Garrison Doles, for less than 4 years when Garrison suffered a brain aneurysm. The treatment seemed straightforward and uncomplicated, but there was a complication, and then another complication. There was a clot, and then a massive stroke. And then Garrison, a healthy, still young man, died. It happened right around this time of year, in the period of Advent. Now, Jan had been writing a book of blessings at the time of her husband's death, and she continued on writing blessings even as she experienced profound grief. As a prayer today, I will read one of these blessings from Jan Richardson's book, The Cure for Sorrow. I invite you to find a comfortable position, settle into your seat, take a deep breath, and let these words wash over you like a meditation or a prayer. This reading is called A Blessing for the Brokenhearted. Let us agree for now that we will not say the breaking makes us stronger, or that it is better to have this pain than to have done without this love. Let us promise we will not tell ourselves time will heal the wound when every day our waking opens it anew. Perhaps for now it can be enough to simply marvel at the mystery of how a heart so broken can go on beating as if it were made for precisely this. As if it knows the only cure for love is more of it. As if it sees the heart's sole remedy for breaking is to love still. As if it trusts that its own persistent pulse is the rhythm of a blessing we cannot begin to fathom, but which will save us nonetheless. I invite you to sit with these words for a moment and listen to what is speaking to you today. And please join me in taking a deep breath. And remaining in a spirit of quiet introspection, we'll listen to the choral anthem, Dark of Winter. I heard this phrase, the land of never, recently, while I was taking a course in pastoral crisis intervention with the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. It was coined by an ICISF instructor, Peter Volkman, a retired police officer and emergency medical technician who was a first responder on 9/11 at the World Trade Center. The land of never refers to what happens after the unimaginable takes place. As Claire mentioned in her beautiful reflection, all of us go through life with a set of expectations about what is likely to happen in our lives. Now, of course, these expectations change over time as we learn and grow and have experiences and age into and out of certain possibilities. Outside of this changing set of likelihoods, we spend a good deal of time in Never Never Land, the land of fantasy, where we imagine both wonderful things, like winning the lottery, or terrible things, like being eaten by a shark. And both of those are very unlikely to ever happen. And yet, as unlikely as these events may be, many of us invest an unreasonable amount of energy into dreaming about them or worrying about them. But then there is a different set of experiences that is neither the unlikely stuff of fantasy nor the expected stuff of daily life. These are the things, the tragedies, that if we think of them at all, we think of them as happening to other people. Never to our loved ones, never in this country, never to this neighborhood, never to good, careful people, never to us. And yet, sometimes, the unimaginable happens. Tragedy strikes not just close to home, but in our home. And suddenly, there are no words to describe this new state of being. We have entered the land of never. Now, the land of never is a well-traveled place and completely uncharted territory. And that's because what constitutes the land of never is different for each and every person. My experience of unimaginable loss is unique to me, just as my experience of unspeakable joy is just mine. And yet, every single person, regardless of wealth or health or privilege, lives in the land of never, just one step away. It's like in a science fiction novel, where at any moment someone might walk through an invisible door into a parallel universe. The threshold to the land of never can't be seen, and yet it is always just right. there. The door to the land of never takes many forms. Sometimes it is impossibly wide, allowing many to come through at once. These are moments of historical trauma when everything we accepted as the way things are is suddenly shattered. These gateways are marked by dates. September 11th, 2001. April 19th, 1995. And sometimes they're even marked by hours and minutes. 9:01, 9:03. Other times the door to the land of never is much narrower, a passageway just for one community or one family or one small person. We might enter the land of never through the death of a loved one or through a terminal diagnosis. The door to this terrible land might look like job loss, eviction, dementia, disease, violence, injury, betrayal. For me, it was divorce, preceded by the realization that the person I thought I knew wasn't that person at all. That was a long time ago now, but I remember that land and its valleys and its barren plains. It's still as vivid as photographs. There are infinite doors to the land of never, but once inside, the landscape is strangely empty. It's amazing how that works. How so many people can be in the same place at the same time and not see each other. How is it that we can be in a crowd and still think we are completely alone? But that's the power of that land, isn't it? That sense of isolation. It's what holds us inside, like a border wall. And ironically, the sounds we hear from the other side of the wall can sometimes make us feel even more alone. This can be especially true at a time of year like this, the holiday season, when sounds of happiness can make grief just that much more tangible, can make the barriers that separate us from the rest of the world just that much more difficult to climb. From the other side of the wall, we hear assurances that this is for the best, or God doesn't give us more than we can handle, or it could be worse. There are others who have it worse than you. And each of these is like another string of barbed wire thrown over the top of that wall. But sometimes, in the silence, or in the din of the false assurances, there is another sound. The sound of breath. Of another human being there with us in this strange and terrifying land, just breathing with us. Con, the prefix meaning with, spiring. Spire being the Latin root word meaning breathe. Someone breathing with us. Someone conspiring. The Reverend Kendall Gibbons calls this the real conspiracy. The kind of conspiracy that brings liberation, not lies. Sometimes that person, that conspirator, is another inhabitant of the land of never, a fellow citizen, if you will. Someone who is grappling with unimaginable loss just like we are, and their persistence in the face of grief, Their very breathing in the presence of tragedy reminds us that we are not alone. But other times, that person is a courageous visitor, someone who has willingly crossed the border of the land of never, so they can remind us that another world still exists outside. Sometimes the visitor is an experienced traveler, fluent in the language and the ways of the land. It might be a therapist or a counselor or a chaplain. Or it might be someone who has experienced so much grief and survived it again and again, who has crossed back and forth across the border of the land of never so many times that they don't even see a wall anymore. Just a checkpoint. They proudly bear the scars of their journeys like the stamps and the passport of a dual citizen. Most willing visitors to the land of never, though, are more awkward and inexperienced. They cross the border because they know they're connected to the people on the other side. Maybe because they love someone who's living in the land of never. And these travelers aren't afraid of experiencing discomfort, and they're not afraid of looking stupid. They know they might say or do the wrong things, but their words and their actions are based in love. When I was at a low point after my divorce, living in a decent but strange apartment in a strange city where I had no friends or family, my landlord tried to show me kindness. In the home I'd left behind, I'd had a beautiful herb garden, and one of the few things that I took with me was plants from that garden that I dug up and put into pots on my windowsill. Well, apparently my landlord was not a master gardener or a cook, or even someone with a decent sense of smell. Because one day, I came home from work to find him standing outside my door telling me humbly that he'd weeded all my pots. Every last plant was gone. It was horrible. So horrible that I had to laugh. And it was glorious. And I was grateful. Now, would it have been better if he'd asked me if I wanted my pots weeded? Or if he'd asked me what I was growing in the first place? Would it have been better if he had just talked with me and listened to me? Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. But would it have been better if he had done nothing at all? No. Because an act of kindness, even a very misguided act, is still kindness. And in the land of never, true kindness is a conspiracy. It is a breathing with. It is a reminder that love still exists. That people are only human, that people make mistakes sometimes, even when they're acting out of love, and that empathy is a powerful thing. Empathy meaning feeling into, not just sympathy, not just feeling alongside, not just throwing platitudes over the wall. Empathy is a border crossing. It is a courageous crossing over into the land of never. And it is a way out. Leaving the land of never isn't like departing from a country we've visited on vacation. We carry out more than souvenirs and photographs. And some of that land lives on inside us. We are forever changed by it, but not for the worst, not necessarily. We can learn to be travelers of life, crossing borders into unimaginable places, and then crossing back again with greater understanding and deeper appreciation. Learning to travel lightly, carrying only what matters most. Coming to understand that we are never truly alone. That wherever we are, there are others breathing with us, conspirators in joy, in loss, in living. We're going to go long today, and that's okay. In order to know that we are not alone, it can be good to grieve together. So as Wendy plays some more beautiful music for us, I invite anyone who would like, anyone who is grieving, who has traveled in or perhaps is still traveling in the land of never, to come up to the table and to put a pinch of salt into this bowl of water. Let the bowl hold the salt as a community of love holds our tears. Please rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn. It's number 241 in the gray hymnal, "In the Bleak Midwinter."
In the bleak midwinter, frosty wind and blow, earth stood hard as iron, water like a stone. Snow had fallen, snow on snow. In the bleak midwinter, long ago. Christ, the homeless stranger, so the gospel say, cradled in a manger and a bed of hay. In the bleak midwinter, stable place sufficed. Mary and her baby, Jesus Christ. One song.
Hey, you guys are supposed to be singing. Okay.
Once more child and mother weave the magic spell, touching hearts with wonder, words can never tell. In the bleak midwinter, in this world of pain, where our hearts are open, love is born
Silly you.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of love and community which burns in our hearts.
Just a quick announcement. As always, all are welcome to gather in Daniel Hall after the service today for coffee and conversation. And there will be a table set up by the Social Justice Council where you are welcome to help sign cards, holiday cards, for people who are on death row in Oklahoma. I want to leave you with a blessing that comes from the book written by Jan Richardson. This is a blessing of hope. So may we know the hope that is not just for someday, but for this day. Here, now, in this moment, that opens to us. Hope not made of wishes, but of substance. Hope made of sinew and muscle and bone. Hope that has breath and a beating heart. Hope that will not keep quiet and be polite. Hope that knows how to holler when it is called for. Hope that knows how to sing when there seems little cause. Hope that raises us up from the dead, not someday, but this day, every day, again and again and again. May it be so.